Hi, Jules here for Talk to Me Tuesday on Wednesday, September 5th. I am standing in front of the 3 finished Project Linus quilts that are going to be turned in this Saturday. The only thing I haven't done, they've been quilted, bound, washed. They have not been labeled because I'm out of labels. So I will have to label them at the meeting on Saturday morning. I do have a couple of fleece blankets I will probably also be turning in. I know one for sure is done, and it is labeled. Those are both labeled, but I'm not quite done hemming the edge of the second one. So I'm really excited to be caught up by this Saturday and maybe even one ahead. I actually made binding for this one, and I made binding for this one. The other blanket, I used binding, leftover binding from other quilts, sewed them together, and had more than enough to finish this guy over here. So the middle one is, of course, the quilt top I received from Susan, so thank you so much, Susan. It's a beautiful quilt top, and I feel like now that I've gone back and unpicked the variegated thread that I started with and went back and did white, I feel like it no longer detracts from the beautiful colors and design of your quilt. So I actually used white to quilt all of these and I feel like it worked good. So the other thing I did was all of these contain scrappy batting. The first one I did zigzag together, but after that I got too lazy. And I basically, since I'm quilting on a frame and I float my quilt batting in top, I don't have them attached to any rails. When I quilt, I only attach the backing to the rails to keep it taut. Because of that, it's easy to just lift the top up and add another hunk of leftover batting. So that's what I did for all of these. I just basically laid it on top of the backing, butted it up to the next, pinned it on in a couple of spots on the edge just to keep it from shifting around, and made sure I marked it on top of the top with a pin so that I knew exactly where the join was, and made sure to quilt really well over those joins. That's it. Let's go take a look at these quilts. This one is understandably called Elephants on Parade. This vintage elephant fabric, someone donated to Project Linus a number of years ago, and I've been saving it in my stash. It was left over from maybe some kids' pajamas or something, so it was cut weird. And once I got it cut into squares on retreat, this is one of my retreat quilts. I managed to get that done. And I was playing around with my quilting on this, so you'll see they're not awesome, but they're kind of cute. I felt like the little flowers go with the flowers that are in the background of the elephants. And you'll see there's also flowers on the back. This is some, it's hard to see in this light, but this is some fabric that was, oh, look how crinkly it is. I just love it. This is some fabric that was donated to Project Linus on a bolt. It is 50/50 poly cotton, and so I've been using it exclusively as backing. It does scrunch up nicely, and it looks like I have a few threads I need to pick out along the edges right here, but that's it. And as you can tell, it's 8 o'clock because there's the church down the street. Here is Susie's log cabin quilt. And I actually used some fabric that was some alphabet fabric for the binding. Where it was from a panel and most of the alphabet was missing. I just had one chunk left that someone had donated. So I cut it into strips, and I'm using it for a bright binding. You can't really tell what the design was. It was like zoo animals for an alphabet. But I think it makes a nice, fun, multicolored binding. I just did a basic all over meander on this one. This is the one that I picked out. It started out as a loop-de-loop, and I'll see if I can... Thankfully, you can't see where I originally quilted it. And also, thankfully, you can't see the blood stain that I dripped down here onto this green. So, that did come out. Yay. I gotta get better at not stabbing myself. The back of the log cabin is some fabric I brought back from Project Linus a long time ago. Is that not the most fun fabric you've ever seen? And I thought it was perfect for the back of this quilt. So it's just one piece. That one was narrow enough that I really squeaked it through though. It was just barely wide enough to not have to piece. So that one worked out. Here's the back of the other quilt. This is one of my retreat quilts also. And this is the one of the pieced backings that I did. And this is just leftover binding that I just sewed together that I thought didn't clash. As long as it doesn't clash too badly. I used it for the binding. Why make more binding when you have a bag full of chunks of binding, right? This one was called, I believe, Bricks and Brights or something like that, I want to say. And you can see, here's an orphan block here. The orphan blocks were these bricks. And then I cut this fabric to go with it. And I cut some of these into squares in order to make the thing fit. Added this border, added these sashing in between. These were leftover 2.5 strips, I believe, binding strips or something from Jennifer on retreat. And then this is leftover bits of a honey bun that I bought one time. And I just felt like it needed, I don't like my quilts to be less wide than 1 yard. I don't really like them to be less than 36. I think this one might be 33 after I added the honey bun. But it just needed to be, I don't like it to be as small as 30 inches wide, even though that's as small as we can accept. So, once again, another all over meander, sort of my go-to because I don't have a lot of space. And my frame is not the smoothest, and I don't have regulated stitch on it. So, that's that. Those are the 3 that are ready to get turned in. They just need to be labeled. Once again, Susan, thank you for the log cabin quilt top. I think that came out brilliantly. And I'm very excited to have gotten so many done. I'm going to go now. I'm going to take some pictures out here before the clouds build up. We're supposed to get rain later today, another thunderstorm. But I'll put some pictures at the end of this. And I haven't watched anyone's videos yet, but I look forward to watching your videos. And I will see you next week. Bye!